Well met everyone, I am Rich the Lich, and today's video is going to be from the other side of the screen, the player side of things, the player perspective. I'm going to build a character. I'm going to use D&D Beyond and all of the resources and books I have, and I'm going to build a character. D&D Beyond, as I said, I have all of the books, okay? So you may see options here, especially in the races, that maybe you don't have access to. And while you might be able to pick and pull from some of my ideas and thoughts here, of course, when you are building your own character, you need to wrangle through the rules at your table. If your dungeon master says you can only build the characters that are available in Player's Handbook, obviously you're not going to have access to the stuff in Xanathar's and Tasha's, okay? But I will show you kind of which options I'm pulling from. First off, on the screen, it shows what sources. I often will allow homebrew, and I'm approaching this more from the DM perspective really quickly, because I do create some homebrew content like magic items, or maybe there's a feat or something that I want my players to have access to in D&D Beyond, okay? Magic the Gathering, so that I have access to the stuff that's in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, Theros, and so on, and Eberron. The other content I'm going to leave alone. Dice rolling, we're good. Milestone system doesn't matter too much. Feats, multi-class requirements, so on. We don't typically use encumbrance. We do not use encumbrance in our games. Be realistic. Don't walk out with 9 suits of plate mail. Modifiers on top. I don't care if it's public. That's fine. All right. So what am I going to build? I was thinking through this a little bit when I was making breakfast. I want to play an orc. A full-blood orc, not a half-orc. And there's a little bit of backstory, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, about this orc at a young age. So kind of early teens, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, in orc years or whatever, had to kind of survive on his own, right? Had to become Bear Grylls, man versus wild. So I want this orc to be, yes, they're going to be big. They're full blood, right? So they're kind of grunting, but I want this orc to be a little more dexterous, a little more agile, a little more survival based. So what I will often do, what I will always do, before I pick my race and take anything further, I want to find a picture, right? You know, I've talked about that in videos where when I'm building my own NPCs or my own monsters, pictures are worth 1,000 words. There's so much content that I can pull from a good piece of artwork. So all I'm going to do is simply just type in Orc Ranger in Google. I did that already. And I'm just going to find a picture that kind of talks to me. I went and chose this guy right here. I'm really big on giving appropriate attribution to whoever made the piece. I think this is a piece of art from Pathfinder. I do not know who the artist is. I apologize if I'm stepping on any toes. I did not create this art. This is not my art. I'm not trying to claim it. It's not mine. I'm just using it for demonstration and tutorial purposes, okay? So here he is. Let's take a look at this dude. Don't worry about any of that. Let's just open it this way. There he is. Orc. I think it says this thing is a half-orc, but he's got that furrowed brow and the tusks. It looks orcish enough for me. Big, giant forearms, well-muscled, right? But then if you look lower body, he looks a little more, slender there, a little more dexterous. He's not a tanky, full-plate, armored, grunting, the entrance to Orgrimmar World of Warcraft style, right? He looks more survival-ish, which is what I want. The bow, so ranger type. Looks like he's wearing high boots, a little more silent. Looks like he maybe is capable of jumping on a horse very quickly, mounting, dismounting. Has some metal pauldrons, but otherwise pretty loose. Doesn't even look like maybe leather armor, but it looks more like just kind of cloth. He has a cool like neck scarf thing. Big giant neck. You can see his neck is coming out. That's what I'm going for in real life. From the tops of from the bottom of your ears to the caps of your deltoids. He does have another sword, another weapon there, so on his back, and he has a real long blade or a dagger or something, like a short sword perhaps. But what does this scream to me? What does this inform to me? Well, I want him to be agile, dexterous. I want him to be able to use mounts. I want him to be able to get in and out of places, right? He's not just Hulk smashing through the door. But yet, he still is orcish, right? He's going to have endurance. He's going to have strength. Look at the size of his forearms. He's going to be the size that an orc would be. Apologies for that. I want him to have a longbow, so I'll have to look into the classes that might give me those options. And some other weapons in case he's not able to be in range combat. Okay? All right, that's what I have. So let's run with it. I'm going to choose, see what I mean? Look at all the damn options you have. This is all the races that have been brought out through any official book. That's why you're seeing all this. So I'm going to go with kind of the bog standard orc. I believe this is the monstrous race from Volo's guide. So orc. Here we go. We'll choose that as the race. I'm not going to worry about his name yet. Okay? As I start to build this guy out, I will then start to think through what the name is. Okay? I'm not going to worry about the portrait. That's fine. That definitely looks more grunting orcish. I am adept in Photoshop. I can certainly take this thing and make that as my icon. All right? That's beyond the point of this video, is for me to show you how I Photoshop 101. But here are the details. I probably should have mentioned, I am building a level 1 character for the purpose of this video. All right? You'll notice it prompts. This is not a D&D Beyond selling point at all. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not affiliated with. But D&D Beyond is really damn efficient. When I make really elaborate NPCs with a lot of moving parts, more than just a name and their attack bonus, I will build them in D&D Beyond as I would be building a character. So orcs have this thing called Primal Intuition. You have proficiency in 2 of the following skills of your choice, okay? Remember the theme that I'm going with. This starts to inform the buttons you're pushing. I always call these mechanical bits, these traits, the buttons you push, right? Your DM comes up with a situation. You arrive in a forest. You notice you're running out of food. They prompt a situation. They give you a scenario. And then each player will then look down at their sheet and figure out what buttons they can turn on. In this particular case, or in that scenario, we need food. Is there a button I can push that gives us food? That button might be survival, right? So your DM says roll a survival check. If you make it, okay, you find some game out there, or you find edible plants, or whatever it may be, okay? So these mechanical things, kind of the stuff that people make builds on, the metagamey stuff, those are the buttons you push. But I don't like to just figure out how can I have as many buttons as possible or make that the most powerful I win button in this situation. No, what I like to do is use the artwork, use the story, the theme of what I'm going for to inform which buttons I should have. And as long as those buttons adhere to my theme, I don't care if they're the best buttons to push in any given situation. You know, I'm not going to multi-class to a caster that has the ability to create food and water. I just want to be able to push some minor button, like survival, to give me a chance of finding food and water. I'm not trying to metagame it and say, I always have food and water and will never run out. I always have light when we need it. I always know how to get dark vision and dungeon delve appropriately. I just want to follow the theme. So the theme of my guy as a survivalist, one button I'm going to push, this informs that automatically. I want survival, and I was going to pick nature, but you know what I'm going to pick is I'm going to pick insight. And as I start to lean into and reveal more of this character's backstory, which I was thinking through as I was making breakfast, I'm going to choose insight as the other one. You will see why in a little bit. Everything else is done for you. You can read stuff, of course, but there's no options to pick. So he's good. Aha, the big one, right? Level 1. I am not thinking through multi-class 100% yet, meaning which buttons are going to be appropriate for that. But there's a little bit there that I want to work through, okay? I'm going to eventually move somewhere with this character into sorcerer, okay? So I do need a couple of buttons I want to pay attention to, like charisma. I want to make sure my stats are accommodating for that, okay? Now, you know what? I think this might be the best time to reveal a little bit of my story, where I'm coming from. I thought of this when I was making breakfast. I knew I was going to make a video, get on D&D Beyond, make a character, show you guys the player side of things for once. I knew I wanted to be an orc. Here's the story. The orc village this time was attacked by humans. See, this isn't a group of humans that lost all their loved ones and their home was destroyed by rampaging, ravaging humanoids, kobolds and goblins and stuff. No, my orc village was invaded by humans, right? The king finally put reward out, get Shrek style, right? Get rid of those monsters in the east. And my orc village was raided, and to save me as a 2-3-year-old, Mom put me in a little basket, willow style, right? Set me down the river. Guess who found me? A tiefling. A hermit, exiled tiefling. Don't know who she is yet. She's going to be somewhere in my backstory. The tiefling was exiled from her kingdom, right? Different association to the group that raided my orc village. But anyway, this female tiefling met me. She was considered a heretic, a witch, for dabbling into sorcery in such a level that she was playing with like planes and portals, right? Leaning into that infernal heritage. I think that's what tieflings are. Yeah, devils. So anyway, she was, she had really large horns. So people just thought she's a devil, right? They judged her immediately. She was exiled. She's the one that found me, right? One day she's out back of her little hut and she sees this creaking basket, a wicker basket floating down the river with a little damn orc in it. Me. She pulls me out of the river. She brings me inside the house. Long story short, she becomes a motherly figure to me. I have never, maybe that's in my backstory where I want to find my mother. I want to find out what happened. Was everyone killed? At 2 years old, I don't know if I could tell that the human raiders were decimating the entire village. But this tiefling has become my mother. She's cared for me. She's taken care of me. But also, while she didn't directly teach me magic, I was exposed to it. I grew up from 2 years old to about 12 years old. I grew up with the tiefling. And I saw her scrawling things in books and tomes. She's a sorceress, so she doesn't have a spell book per se, but she was still putting all sorts of arcane marks and, various iconography and symbols all over the walls. Kind of like, when there's a serial killer in one of those detective shows, and you get the FBI investigators, and you've got a push pin, and then there's like a thin piece of rope, and there's circles, and there's portraits, and that wall of detective work. That was the wall that I sort of slept next to, that I stared at all the time. So it built an interest in sorcerer things. That's why I'm leaning towards sorcerer later. I don't know when, okay? But I want to multi-class into that, all right? But being the sorcerer, she taught me. She took and taught me common. She taught me languages. So I wasn't just a grunting, "Let me smash." She taught me how to speak elegantly, how to inflect in my words, how to gesture. And that's where I built that sort of charismatic, almost like a paladin would have, that ability to coerce, to deceive. But also, that's why I chose insight. She taught me how to read people. She explained to me at an early age, 9, 10, and 11, that people are going to judge you just based on your size. Notice, she went through this, right? Judging a book by its cover. People are going to judge you. You need to learn how to read them. You need to learn, she taught me very quickly, trust no one. But you will not make it alone in this life. This is the life that was dealt, the hand that was dealt to her now. She's been isolated. But she said, you will need allies. You will need friends. You cannot do everything on your own. But you need to learn who to trust. And that's where the insight came in. That's where I built up this charismatic sense for an orc, a full-blood orc. Which, the button of charisma is going to come in handy when I make a sorcerer, right? Because they are a sorcerer-based class. I'm sorry, they are... Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. Are sorcerers based on intelligence? They are a charismatic-based class, okay? But, lo and behold, the same fate that had befallen my Orcus village, eventually the witch hunters came. And I wasn't thrown down the river again. This time, she came in a panic. You need to go. My dear, my son, leave. Leave now. She handed me a few things. She gave me a bow. Doesn't matter where she got it from, a long bow. Leave now. Head off into the woods. Take all of the skills that I've taught you. You will survive. You have the strength of an orc. You have the endurance of an orc. You were taught to harvest, to forage, how to, what did Matt Damon do in Martian, right? You know how to grow your own potatoes, take care of yourself, hide out, lay low for a while. And the witch hunters came for her. And I was forced from about age 12 to about the time when I became an adventurer joining the party, 18, 19 years old. I'm a very young orc. I was taught how to survive in the wilds on my own. And that is why I'm going to choose, let's just keep it simple, Ranger, right? Because I think if I look through it, I'm going to use another D&D Beyond interface here, just to double check. It's efficient this way, so I can make sure I'm getting the buttons I need, right? As a Ranger, okay, you are proficient in simple and martial weapons. It doesn't say martial melee weapons, so I will be able to pick a bow, okay? Or I'm proficient in one to start. So let's go with Ranger. Here we go. Dex, Wisdom. Remember I talked about based on the picture. I want to be a little more agile. I want to be not so tankish. I want to be able to get on a horse and sneak around in the woods and stuff. So the Ranger is going to lead better in that direction. Proficiencies. Investigate. Now we'll go Nature. Perception. That kind of helps in my awareness of people, the environment, right? Just awareness is probably the best word for that. Now, here's one. I can pick something based on what I think is going to help best when I'm rolling dice, right? Kind of crunching the numbers mechanically. Not so much roleplay oriented. I'm not going to have a pet. I'm not going to go that deep down the Ranger route. It's more of, I'm a woodland guy, but I'm definitely not the stereotypical elven Ranger Legolas type, okay? Investigation or stealth? I'll go stealth. I've had to hide out in the woods long enough from those witch hunters because they knew that she had someone with her and they maybe were looking for me for a while. Favorite enemy? Humanoids. See, this is one where you'd have to get authority. You know, I feel like it can be a little overpowered if your favorite enemy is humans. But that's what I would pick just because maybe the tiefling taught me as I got older. You know how you got to me? I think your people, your orcs, were invaded by humans, right? But maybe I can lean into who were the main witch hunters that came for her. Maybe there was Dragonborn involved. And they were the ones that were coming to hunt her. So I'm just going to say favorite enemy is dragons. Good enough. Oh, 2 choices. Another one? Language. Obviously, I already speak orc, being an orc. But she taught me, and I have common. Infernal, it has to be. She taught me her language. I want to double check. Is that correct? Tiefling. Yeah. Infernal, whatever. Common and Infernal. So she taught me Infernal. But notice the flavor that's there already. Right? When a player asks, or the DM, what the hell, you're an orc, you speak Infernal. How do you negotiate and deal with devils? How do you know what they're saying? I was raised by a tiefling. Whatever, right? I'm not just making stuff up and having a homebrew Infernal. It's just popping up as an option, so good. Definitely, it's going to be grassland. No, forest, I'm sorry. There it is. All right, higher levels. We don't need any of this stuff, right? I'm only level 1. Cool. Aha! We'll go standard array. Now, you would think Dex should be super high, right? But, because I'm talking about he wants to be agile and skulking through the forest a little bit, but he's not going roguish. That's just out of necessity. I had to be able to hide and lay low and move quickly. But I'm going to pick strength because that just makes sense to represent my brutish race. I am just naturally strong. I don't want to say that and then not have a stat that shows it appropriately. And then second, this does help with the button I'm going to push when I go into Sorcerer, but she taught me how to be charismatic. She taught me how to weave through negotiations and interactions with people, to trust no one, but you are going to need to trust someone someday. And now we'll go the next big ones. Yeah, that's kind of one. The race is going to give me some bonuses, so I am super strong right there, +2. And the con is going to help me. That's just the normal brutish, orcish nature of me. But we'll just leave it at that. Charisma, I want to be high, and we're going to go typical dump stat. Okay, good enough. Okay, gives me something to start with. I never obsess about the stats. Yes, you don't want to be useless in combat and you want to be able to be good at, decent at the things that you say you want to be good at. But notice how I'm really flavoring this. I always do this. As I make more videos of this, if you guys are interested, you will notice I keep leaning into the theme, the vibe, the feel of the character, not so much where my numbers are, okay? All you have to do is find a damn amulet of health and you've fixed your constitution. If you're trying to like game it numbers-wise. All you have to do is find a, all. Headband of intellect, girdle of giant strength, right? And you're going to fix stats. Background. This is a big one. And you'll notice ridiculous amount. What is my background? I want to lean more towards the sorcerer upbringing. Nothing orcish related because I left that society when I was 2. Is there a hermit? I'm going to do hermit. We were the only 2 in that damn hut, man. Hidden away. So let's go with that. Another language. See what I mean? She just told me how to deal with people. What's a good... I'm going to go halfling. And the reason why is maybe she said, trust no one, but you're going to have to find people to help you. The good-natured, loving attitude of the halfling she's come into contact with before she was exiled, halflings always treated her well. So she said, these are people, if you are going to look to someone and begin your journey towards finding some companionship, start with this northern village, 150 miles away of halflings. That I've been through that place. So that's why I know halfling. I don't need a lot of other options. I'm going to go with equipment. The picture looked like he had a little bit of leathery armor on, maybe. And then we're going to go with short swords because he looks like he has something on his right there on his chest. For an orc, that's a big-ass dagger. Explorer's pack for sure. Longbow and a quiver of 20 arrows. Ranger starting equipment. Boom. It fits the picture right there. Perfect. We'll leave all this stuff alone. Hermit. Winter blanket. Herbalism kit. Pouch. That's kind of just sitting up, Bear Grylls style in the woods. Add starting equipment. This is all little details that we don't need to go through on video. But, where you want to click. Wield, like this. Wear that. Wield that. Everything I said I wasn't going to do, I'm doing it right now. 1 short sword is fine. Use those arrows. Everything else is good. Quantity. Your normal starting equipment, right? Nothing to write home about here. View my character sheet. I need a name. I did say level 1, yeah. Manage hit points. What's my abilities? My con is 13, which is a +1. Yeah, because Ranger is D10, right? Told you it's been a while. D10. So first level, 10 plus con mod, which is I only have a 13 con, so I do have 11 hit points. That's accurate. But we need a name. We need a name. Her family name is Savat. So she told me to take her family name, and I remember she would tell me at 5, 6 years old, I don't know much of orcish names. They sound too brutish, right? They're too, gore, sod, whatever. Take the ones from Warhammer or Warcraft. So she said, I want to give you a name that's more fitting of your refinement, of your culture, of your society. You are better than that. Okay? The humans invaded your people because you were treated as monsters. I'm going to teach you the charismatic ways. And I'm going to call you Lumley. Right? So he's a full-blood orc by the name of Lumley Savat. Alright? There we go. I think he's done. Did I not save it? Son of a... Aha! There he is. And then obviously we'd get a cool profile where I would Photoshop this thing. Really strong. It's going to help me when I'm smacking people with my short sword, right? Or get that other weapon that was on his back, this big ass thing. I'm good at both. I'm proficient in the longbow from the get-go, right? Because I spent a lot of time in the wilds. Features and traits. You're the ranger type dude. Here we go. See, I'm proficient in survival. I can find my food. I can sneak around when I need to. Religion. Maybe she taught me a little bit. Why do I have that? Where did that come from? Is that a hermit? I have dark vision. Obviously, full-blood orc. Survival insight. No feats. Let me know in the comments. I think it came from hermit, perhaps. But anyway, oh, right here. Oh, no, it's not showing me that. Whatever. Proficient religion. Maybe she taught me, like, the reasons, part of the things, right? Remember, she was treated as a witch, as a heretic. It was the faith, the local faith of Dragonborn and a few other paladins and stuff, that religious persecution type of stuff. So she taught me enough about that. Obviously, I've got perception, nature, medicine. Those are all things, even though I know nature is int-based and I'm terrible at int. We've got all of these things simply because those are the sort of things that help you survive in the wilds. And then notice, I'm proficient in insight. I just know how to read people well so I can learn who to trust. I'm moderate, normal dexterity and constitution. Constitution there is just because I'm an orc. Dexterity, I can shoot you from distance if I need to. But charisma, I've got enough in the works to deal with people, but also to move towards the sorcerer line, right? We'll deal with the details on feats. I'm not going to elaborate on this character. I'd rather make a video on another character instead. But we'll deal with the details later as to, you know, what things might conflict with classes. I don't even know how to multi-class necessarily. I don't follow those rules too much. You know, whether every piece of armor and everything my ranger has right now, does any of that conflict when I pick sorcerer? Do I have to take off that armor? I don't know the rules. I'm not going to elaborate on this guy any further, but I think there's enough there. That's my, I don't want to say quick build because it took me a little while, but a lot of it is I had to figure out what was what. But that's my half hour on my process of making Lumley Savat, a full-blood orc ranger that was taught the ways of dealing with people and the insight and the charisma necessary to eventually move into sorcerer magic. All in the pursuit of getting vengeance against those that have taken out my tiefling mother and my orcish tribe. That's all I have for you guys. See you soon.